So we all made it to Winter Solstice 2024, and this discussion is simply for informational purposes only and to allow us all to think about something, and that is the idea of the spirit world. Regardless of what you believe, there are many faiths that believe in a spirit world, and that if you pray the right way, meditate the right way, utter mantras in some cases, that the spirit world will hear what you plead, what you petition, and take action in this world in some form or other. And many of these faiths and beliefs hold that the strength of your petition, the strength of your prayer, the strength of your heart, how you really feel in your heart, has a proportional response in the spirit world. So, with that said, that brings me to the idea that individuals, a single person who goes through their life praying, doing manifestation, doing affirmations, may see little result in their particular spiritual practice. And when they go about that process of mantras, meditation, or fervent prayer, and they see little result, they may continue to do these actions, but in the back of their mind, they may start to believe that those actions have little bearing on their day to day life. That may actually be true with that particular person. However, what happens when you take multiple people, you bring them together, and as a group, they do group prayer, they do group meditation, they do group affirmation as a group. And maybe what they want to do is they want to plead for the release of a person from prison. They want to plead for a person's innocence in the court system. They want to see a country be decolonized. They want to see that the homeless have a better time during this holiday season or in the months to come. Whatever it may be, through this group session, they see that months later on, something actually does happen. So a single person may not have been able to make the right case to the spirit world to see a positive change in this, what we call the real world. But a group of people together can do so. So people getting together can have an impact on the physical world by way of the spiritual world. It is very timely that in a season where gates are being opened, five gates, as it were, there are five gates that are being opened: gates of mercy, gates of grace, even the gates for prisons. Those gates are being opened in a spiritual and symbolic fashion. And I support those actions to open these gates, to bring about greater peace, greater mercy in the world. However, that is not the whole of the story, as it were. You see, we are in a time where there are groups that have aligned themselves with certain spiritual activities, certain spiritual flavors, certain spiritual movements. And these groups, some of them have competing priorities for the attention of people and for the fate of the world. not to be too dramatic. And so we have, in this case, Billy Carson. I'm bringing Billy Carson up because Billy Carson is an example in real time of what we're talking about. And so is Diddy. Diddy is an example on the negative side of it, right? But Billy Carson is an example on the positive side of it. And this is how it lays out. So, Billy has attracted a certain audience and has been able to reach a wider range of people who have reconsidered their participation in a certain faction of the spiritual world. And in doing so, has caused a reaction from certain factions of the spiritual world to, in some cases, reclaim their following, to expand their following. And so Billy Carson becomes a casualty. Billy Carson does have flaws. I am very well aware of them. As someone who analyzes some of the spiritual teachings that go out across social media and that watch certain people and who actually meet some of these personalities halfway through seminars and through other means, right? I become aware of where the flaws are. I'm naturally analytical that way. And so I see many issues with Billy Carson in the past. That doesn't mean that Billy Carson can't overcome some of those flaws in the future. That's not for any of us to say or for us to judge. But awareness does help so that you don't get caught up in something where you later regret it. And so that's what I see with Billy Carson is that you do have an individual that's flawed, but who among us isn't flawed? When we get down to it, who isn't flawed? But rather than focus on the person, I look at the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? The bigger picture is that the more people put their minds and wills and hearts together for a variety of causes that oppose the established power structure, be it corporate, be it political, and dare I say it, be it religious, then that causes a sea change shift in the reality as we know it. I've seen people pray as groups to prevent certain spiritual leaders from doing certain things. I've seen them do it, and I've seen it actually happen. And so, what this all means and what this entire discussion is about is that there is a spiritual clash, a spiritual warfare. But it's not the spiritual warfare that you think it is. Well, it is. So, you do have spiritual warfare between forces of light and forces of darkness. But sometimes you do have spiritual warfare between spirits of light, spiritual forces of light. Sometimes you do have spiritual warfare that you might call in the greater consciousness of groups that mean goodwill, love, and compassion. But they go about it different ways. Then very human feelings get in, such as pride, envy, territorialism, wanting my group to be the better group. And so that's what happened with Billy Carson. He found himself caught up in that. And yes, he made mistakes. He made quite a few mistakes. But if you're looking in the eyes of the Spirit, then you're looking into not the mistakes that he's making, but you're looking at what does he really mean? That's what discernment is about. Discernment. What are we discerning about the situation? What we're discerning is that there are forces that want to keep people in the dark, that want to keep people less informed about spirituality, about broader spirituality, because broader spirituality is a path to liberation. You liberate yourself when you expand your spirituality. And for all the mistakes that Billy Carson has made, and I'm just using Billy Carson as an example, there are many spiritual people on social media that have flaws, right? And privately, I do talk about these things with people because I get the instant messages. I get, the messages about, oh, look at this nice little video about manifestation and affirmation. And I'm the type of person, I'm like, don't waste your time with that. And I do it in a polite way. But I do believe in those things. I just don't think that many of the spiritual content that people see on social media will really do them well in the long term, and that some of it is grift to help people build a funnel, a money funnel, right? I see patterns of it, and it does annoy me. But this whole Billy Carson situation has caused me to reconsider the bigger picture, to get unstuck out of like, yeah, that's just trying to sell a book or you're just trying to sell a seminar. That does run through my head, right? And people have the right to do those things, right? We shouldn't begrudge them to do that. But sometimes I think there's an over commercialization of spirituality. Now, the bigger picture is that there are some who would use spirituality as a way to shut people down, to control them, to pacify them, and to help mold people in a way where then the politicians and the powerful can then run roughshod right over a person's life in a way where that person will not say anything back, will hold their tongue and restrain themselves all the way to the end, seeing no justice, seeing no rebalancing take place, right? And so Billy and others talk against that in many different ways, and they don't always do it in the best way possible. And in their urge to want to do that, in their urge to want to do that, they might go too far. So, to conclude this, I would say that Billy does a meditation, a group meditation every year. By his testimony, there are many people who are helped by that group meditation. Think about that. And his is not the only case where that sort of thing happens, where there is an actual scientific correlation between people engaged in group conversation, group meditation, or group prayer, and there is an impact on the real world. So, are there forces that want to hold that back? Probably. But that's not the entire picture in and of itself. The other part of it is that within these spiritual groups is a desire to want to be the primary group and to deflect anyone that would threaten that. So the timing of the social media content against Billy Carson was very suspect. It was very suspect. It seemed very coordinated. And so that was a telltale sign that something deeper was going on. And in this time of the winter solstice, where in a couple of days, 5 gates will be opened, and where through the principles of energy harvesting, that there is a desire to have maximum attention on those 5 gates and on portals in general. People like Billy Carson might be in the way of that agenda of focusing the mass consciousness in a certain direction, if you get what I mean. So that's all I wanted to say today. I wanted to say it during this time. I actually wanted to say it 2 days ago, but things came up. But I thank you for your comments on the previous videos and for a vigorous conversation about spirituality and religion. And I hope this finds you well. Thank you.